Let's break down some multiple choice questions. I'll pick a course, then we'll break down 4 possible examples of questions you may see in the exams. This is going to be super helpful, not just to get through and see answered questions, but also let's learn from them. This video is on the 3rd in the order Ontario Real Estate Salesperson Program, Course 3, Exam Master MCQ video breakdowns with me. Just quickly, if you are looking for that additional support to pass these exams fast and efficient, look to the Exam Master mini courses in the description below from C1 all the way to Sims 2. More on that later in the video, but let's just dive right into the computer.
Okay guys, we're just on question 1 here. If you've seen me do this before, we just read them and we break them down. We'll use some of my fundamentals and we'll even go over some notes, right, related to the questions and related to what you'll see on the exams. But basically, let's just get started. Top left, deep breath, and go. In an agreement of purchase and sale for a condominium unit, what is the purpose and effect of the meeting clause? Okay, on to A. You'll see me move the cursor. I always move the cursor, leave it over, hovered over anything you think could be right or you don't know. Move on if you think it is not the correct answer. A. The seller confirms they have not received notice of major upcoming changes to the condominium corporation. Okay, so what is the purpose and effect of the meeting clause? If you don't know, again, leave it hovered over right now. This sounds pretty good, but let's read them all, of course. B, the seller guarantees that no future meetings will occur that could affect the condominium corporation after closing. This doesn't sound good right there, right? The seller cannot guarantee future meetings, if you know what I mean, right? So as soon as the closing's brought up there, the clause only addresses notices received before closing. So this would I'd eliminate and move on. C, the buyer is required to proceed with the transaction, even if a substantial change is disclosed, as long as the seller provides written notice before closing. So the buyer has the option to terminate, right, the agreement if such notice is received. It doesn't work that way for the seller. I'd move on. D, the clause allows the seller to terminate the agreement if the condominium corporation plans major changes that could impact the property's value, right? The protection is for the buyer, right? Sometimes they'll do this. It's like tricky worded, right? The clause allowed the seller to terminate. This clause is for the protection of the buyer, right? The seller confirms they have not received notice of major upcoming changes to the condominium corporation. And let's bring up a bit of a note here, because these meetings are something that, of course, could come up in exams and, of course, good for real world once you start especially if you start working with condos. Here's the note. Seller confirms no notice received of termination of condo corporation, major renovations or additions, significant financial changes. If notice is received before closing, the seller must notify the buyer in writing. Buyer can terminate the agreement. Buyer receives deposit back, no interest, no deduction. This clause is about protecting the buyer, like mentioned, from unexpected major condo changes before closing. Okay, really good question here, guys. A would be the answer, and let's move on to 2. Top left, deep breath. If a landlord needs to enter a tenant's unit to perform maintenance, what are the legal requirements regarding timing and notice? Okay, on to A. A landlord may enter at any time during the day as long as they provide at least 12 hours notice to the tenant. Okay, we're just going to read these ones because if you don't know, you kind of just got to read them all. B, a landlord may enter between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. if they provide the tenant with at least 24 hours written notice stating the reason for entry. Okay, a landlord may enter between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. without notice if the purpose is maintenance or inspection. Okay, a landlord must provide 48 hours notice but may enter at any time of day once notice is given. Okay, I want to say that if you're just doing process elimination and you really don't know, because this is almost one of those exact kind of answers, and they give you some options. A landlord must provide 48 hours, and they may enter it at any time. We're going to say a landlord cannot enter at any time. Of course, midnight. Boom. Let's get rid of D. Let's go over here, right? A landlord may enter at any time during the day as long as they provide at least 12 hours notice to tenants. Okay. Again, it says any time during the day. During the day. Okay, so that's tricky because it could be like, yeah, during the day. At least it's not at midnight. Okay, so we'll keep that one. A landlord may enter between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. without notice if the purpose is for maintenance or inspection. If the purpose, without notice, okay, we're definitely going to need some notice. So there you go. Now you're I'm just walking you through this. Of course, I know the answers, but I'm trying to walk you through as how you do these, right? So I'd eliminate these 2, and then it comes down to 2. Okay, and if it comes to 2, always bookmark, right? Come down here, press the bookmark. This will turn to 1. You'll come back to it, but always pick towards you're leaning towards. The answer is B. A landlord may enter the unit between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. if they provide the tenant with at least 24 hours notice, written notice, stating the reason for entry, right? And again, let's bring up a bit of a note here. I know everyone likes these. It helps to make things stick, right? Note, landlord entry, Ontario residential tenancies. General rule for entry, non-emergency, minimum 24 hours written notice, must state reason for entry, must specify time of entry, exceptions, emergency, no notice required. For example, the unit's flooding, right? They got to get in there. Someone could be in trouble. The whole thing could be flooding someone else, yada, yada. Why it matters, improper entry can violate tenant rights and lead to disputes or legal consequences for the landlord. Okay, good one there, guys. Answer is B. Just kind of remember that. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 24 hours written notice. Okay, B answer. And over to 3, top left, deep breath. A landlord has drafted their own lease agreement and asks whether they must also use the standard form of lease. And what happens if they don't? Which of the following is not? Okay, perfect. We see that not word. We know it's a not question. Right, not, except. We get a few of these. There's even lease, and I think I touch on one of those next. Which of the following is not an accurate statement regarding the standard form of lease and residential tenancy agreements? Okay, on to A. A lease is a binding contract for the use and occupation of a property, whereas an agreement is to lease outlines terms in anticipation of a formal lease. Okay, I like that. Again, we're looking for what is not an accurate statement, okay, right? So I think I like this one. B, if a landlord does not use the standard form of lease, the tenant can request it in writing and the landlord must provide it within 21 days. Okay, tricky if you don't know this, right? Because they're going to get you here. It's like, is it 21 days? Is it 30 days, right? You don't know. Leave it hovered over. Landlord and tenant cannot include any additional terms in the standard form of lease, as all terms must strictly follow the preset clauses with no modifications. Okay, this is getting kind of made up. And I talk about this in my Exam Master mini courses so much. Not questions are easier. When you go through my fundamentals in the Exam Master, you start to understand not questions are easier because guess what? 3 are correct and they have to make something up, fabricate an answer, a wrong answer, right? Because you're looking for what's not accurate. This already sounds a bit fabricated. So a bit fabricated, right? So on to D, to read it, just in case if you think, always read the last one. If the landlord fails to provide the standard form of lease, the tenant may withhold 1 month's rent and may not have to repay it. Okay, if you don't know this well, this is actually accurate, right? So the answer is C, and let's go over a bit of a note. Right, standard form of lease, also referred to, I hate when they do this sometimes, residential tenancy agreement is actually all the standard form of lease, but this is what you will see mostly in the exam, standard form of lease. Must be used for most residential tenancies in Ontario. If it is not used, tenants can request it and may withhold 1 month's rent if it is not provided. A lease is a binding contract while an agreement to lease is not. Okay, just keep that in mind because agreement to lease and standard form of lease are different. Additional terms are allowed, but must be written in plain English, right? So the additional terms are allowed, must be written in plain English, and cannot override the Residential Tenancies Act, RTA. Some exceptions to this standard lease include care homes, mobile park, land lease communities, and certain social and supportive housing. Okay, good note there. Screenshot again if you need that stuff. Really good question here to know because you might get a couple questions on the standard form of lease, and this is a not question. I know they're hard for some. Good to go over. C, answer and move on. On to 4. 4, top left, deep breath. A tenant wants to have additional occupants move into their rental unit, okay? The landlord tells the tenant that only 2 people are allowed to live in the unit, even though the space could physically accommodate more. Who ultimately determines the maximum number of people permitted in the unit? Awesome. Let's read it. The landlord, because they own the property and can decide how many occupants are allowed, okay? The tenant, because they have the right to decide who lives with them in the unit, okay? It doesn't sound great. It doesn't sound proper, but let's say, who knows? The municipality, through local bylaws that set maximum occupancy based on factors such as room size. Okay, starting to sound pretty good. The real estate brokerage is involved in the lease since they are responsible for ensuring compliance with it. Okay, not the real estate brokerage isn't going to do this. We know that one's gone. Not the tenant is going to do this. Is it the landlord or is it the municipality? It is the municipality. Bylaws determine the maximum number of occupants, right? Often use like standards such as like per square foot, right? Like person per 9 meter square foot habitable, that type of thing, right? Let's bring up one little note here. It's a small one. The municipality, local bylaws, they do regulate maximum number of people per unit or room, minimum room sizes, health and safety standards. Okay, guys, because again, some people would think the landlord gets to choose, or tenant even, some people might even think it is the municipality. C, answer there and move on. Okay, guys, 4 great questions. Let's see you right at the computer.
I really hope that helped, guys. And as mentioned, if you are looking for the additional support, look to the Exam Master mini courses in the description below. It's mini notes, mini quizzes, my exact fundamentals. I used to pass all exams first try and in 4.5 months. comments, and I also do video breakdowns of the 4 types of questions you may see in exams. Those links in the description below are also value links for the time being for the YouTube family. I'll add that link to the exammaster.ca right here as well if needed. If you have any questions at all, DM, email, comment on this video. I get back to everyone. My name is Callum Moore, eXp Realty real estate broker here in Ontario. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.